Welcome back to Big Red Rant, everyone. A couple of days ago, Bussin with the Boys put out a great episode starring Matt Rhule, our guy, and it was a pretty entertaining episode. Me and Gary talked about it. It seems like he's got a little bit of a used car salesman gimmick to him. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that ends up getting us some more recruits. But, I'm trying to stay level-headed about how much I'm falling in love with Matt Rhule. I know Gary is too. Gary pointed out something to me that didn't occur right away. It really seems like Matt Rhule was throwing some shade, whether he meant to or not, at Deion Sanders in Colorado. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. Before we get into that, hit the like button for us. If you have not subscribed, please do. You know what? Let's go ahead and show the clips so that we provide some context, and then I'll ask you what you think, Gary.
A few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis. I'm coming. And when I get here, it's gonna be changed. So I want y'all to get ready to go ahead and jump in that portal and do whatever you're gonna get. Because the more you jump in, the more room you make.
I had my first team meeting last night. And I'm one of those guys, I don't let cameras in. There ain't gonna be a camera following me around. I want it always to be the players. The hardest thing, and I said it to the first time when I got hired, I said, hey guys, listen, I know you guys didn't choose me, so I get that. But just remember this, I chose you. I want to be here with you guys, so I hope you stay. Very few guys go into the portal. I'm not one of those, I didn't walk in and say, hey, y'all need to get in the portal, we're changing all this. Those
I'm
guys,
bringing that Louis.
Yeah.
You didn't say
Yeah, I'm not bringing that
I
baggage.
brought my own baggage. It's Louis.
those guys,
Christian McCaffrey,
those
welcome.
guys care about.
So he's definitely throwing shade. Am I wrong? I mean, is this not going to light this rivalry a little bit on fire, considering we play them 2 years in a row again?
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that there's some shade there. Like, it's pretty specific. I don't understand or know exactly why. And I'm honestly surprised nobody else has really said anything about it. There hasn't been a reaction from Deion or anybody on the Colorado side. Maybe just hasn't gotten to them or they don't care. I don't know that there's like this battle between Colorado and Nebraska as far as recruiting goes, with being opposite conferences. You know what I mean? Like, I know there was the Malachi Coleman deal which is what he ends up talking about in that podcast. He had decommitted from us, took some visits. One of them was Colorado. I think he immediately came back from Colorado and met with Matt Rhule, and that's kind of what he's alluding to. But I think it's kind of, in my opinion, it's a two-part deal. Like, Rhule is obviously doing the Twitter thing with the emojis. He's doing all these shows and all these podcasts and everything else for a reason. He wants to get exposure and be more on the modern recruit level, you know what I mean, or more in their scope. And I think that type of, I don't know if you want to call it a shot necessarily, but like calling out a difference, you kind of get a little bit of that with like Fisher and Saban. It got a little carried away, at the end of the last offseason as the season was starting. But like those guys about the NIL and that whole deal with recruiting, against each other. But they're in the same conference. And, it's a competitive deal. He's a competitive guy. He understands the importance of being able to recruit both high school kids and recruit the portal guys that are basically being recruited by everybody. So I think he's kind of strategic. He seems to be real strategic with everything he says. And that's where you and I have talked, and I've brought up the car salesman thing a lot. I don't think he's like a fake guy that's just doing and saying everything that he thinks is going to land right. But I think he's putting a lot of emphasis on the things that he thinks is going to land right. I think that's why there was a lot of people who wanted Deion instead of him here. There's a lot of people all the way up until he was announced as the coach that didn't want him. And now it's kind of the vast majority are cool with it and like him because of what he said, what they've heard him say. So to me, there's no getting around. It's calculated. The dude seems very calculated to what he's saying and making sure he's hitting the points for whatever the audience is he's talking to get them interested in buying into what he's saying or being on his side. So, but I don't know that it's like he turns around at the end and he's talking about Deion having all the respect in the world for him and this and that. And it's, of course you're going to say that. I don't think there's any animosity. I think it's a tactic and kind of it's a shot without being a blatant shot, in his mind, from what I took. What did you think, man? I mean, I don't know I think if it was a deliberate, like, I don't like this guy, or he's not a real coach, or he's just trying to, take care of himself with this camera thing and this recording everything he's doing, I think he could have laid into it a little harder, put more focus on it. It just kind of seemed like
I think he definitely meant to reference Deion. I don't think that he would have chosen for Will and Taylor to carry it on and take it a step further and mention the Louis bag and laugh and stuff, because that was a little bit more gusto, a little bit more flair than I think he meant to put on it. But still, he started it and they carried on with it, and now it looks like he's really kind of being a little bit, it looks like he's being pretty specific and like he's meaning to go after Deion. So the Malachi Coleman thing makes me think that could also be playing into it as well. The fact that he was kind of trying to portal snipe him from us.
Well, I mean, yeah, he wasn't in the portal. I mean, he's still recruiting. He had decommitted. So I don't know that there was anything, suspicious or bad there. But I mean, he touches throughout that interview, man. He touches a lot on, or a fair amount at least, on guys doing things illegal. As far as trying to poach guys or illegally talking to guys in different times. And he alludes to it several times how with the new rules and timelines and time frames and things like that, that it's kind of like the Wild West and stuff like that. And I think I kind of disagree, man. I think he said things in different times, even when he's talking about like the GMs at the Panthers and things like that. I think he's saying things with purpose that passive aggressive. He's kind of saying things the way I took it, hoping that those two would kind of pick up on it and say something. Cause there's a lot of times where he'll half-ass say something and then they don't react or say anything. So then a little bit later when he has another chance, he'll half-ass say it again. And then when they pick up, he goes, oh, well, I'm not saying that. Hey, I'm not trying to bounce back, a couple times. And that was one of them. I thought there was a couple different times where, because the first thing I heard was the little part where he said he had the team meeting and he kind of stops in the middle of the story he's getting ready to tell them about the book that he was telling all the players about, and in the middle he pauses and goes, yeah, and it's just me. I go in there, I don't have cameras following me around. It's not about me, it's about the kids, it's about the players. And then he goes back to it and it's like he's making it a point to get these things out. But the first time I heard it, I'm like, he just happened to say it, but that was the first thing I thought of, was he's alluding to Deion. Well, then a little bit later, 5 minutes or so later is when he brings up the deal where he specifies, I'm not telling people y'all better get in the portal. And it's almost like he's quoting Deion, I mean? It's like I'm not telling kids, you're not going to play, get out of here. I mean, he could have worded it different if it wasn't directed towards Deion. So like I said, there was other things going back to like the Panthers and when he took over at Baylor and stuff like that, where I felt he was dancing around some topics instead of directly, dropping bombs, but trying to make sure you knew what he was alluding to.
It's way too early. Way too early. But as a gambling man, if you had to, who you're putting money on is going to win this upcoming game, second game of the season, Huskers or Buffalo?
Ooh.
I said it's early.
Yeah, like you said, man, it's way too early. I think Colorado's going to have the players immediately. He's already bringing 5 stars in and guys that have coached for or have played for him when he coached like at Jackson State. Obviously, it's going to depend on how quick key guys, like guys that are going to come in, start, can pick up the system and do whatever. But ultimately, man, and I'm not saying I'm drinking Kool-Aid yet, but if the emphasis that he's talking about being put in the trenches on the offense and defensive sides, line-wise, actually happens by the time the season starts, I would say Nebraska, because I don't think Deion's building the type, and I could be wrong, maybe he's changing up. You look at like what he had at Jackson State, it's more speed guys and spreading things out. It's not that line up and own and dominate the line of scrimmage. So I think if we can do that, if things are still in shambles or trying to come along or guys are trying to learn fits and things like that, I think that the skill guys that he's bringing in and the quarterback play and things like that are going to be an advantage for them.
Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Hit that like button for us. And until next time, go Big Red.